So talk to us about why it is that it's so difficult in the lives of those of us with the uterus. Why it's such a challenge for us to navigate the pains that we have physically, particularly those who are approaching perimenopause. Like the body just starts to, it's like it's being crumbled, like the government under doji. Talk to us. Where do these pains come from? What can CBD do for us? Because sleep is a thing that you don't get a lot of in this phase of life.
For real. So I have this muse in my life, right, with the woolen
Yes.
locks, right?
I
And
can't wait
so
to meet her one day. Should I be so lucky? Be like, sis, you doing it.
and so, by extension, right, these things happen around me, which then motivate me to do something. And then I'm like, well, if this is going on with someone near me, then there's got to be a lot of other people going through the same thing. So instead of just randomly picking a subject, just talk about the things that are affecting people in my life, right? So,
There you go.
what better way to use your talents or the skills that you learn to than to help the people that you care about. So,
I love
um,
that.
I
And
love
and please let the Queen of Woolly Locks know that we appreciate that she is the muse inspiring many of your research ventures because it helps
it.
all of us.
Yeah,
Whether we have woolly locks or not, it helps all of us.
yeah. So it was her mom. I spoke to her. Her mom. She's like, "Oh, my mom is having some pain in her hip," and I wound up speaking to her mom, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm on my feet." That happens to be her mom's a Florida, so Flower to People, perfect segment for her.
Oh,
So we
nice.
started talking about what was going on with her hip, and I sent her some stuff. And when they were talking, she was like, "That reliever you said, I rub it on my hip every night before I go to sleep."
I'm
And
telling y'all, the
it takes the
relievers.
pain away and I can get some sleep. And that at that moment, I was like, oh my God, right? Like we forget how much pain impacts sleep. So it's not just your day to day, like during the daytime where you're having difficulty in terms of your obligations at work or in your life or recreation, but it also impacts your ability to get quality sleep. And that's a terrible
Yes.
cycle to be in because sleep is when you're supposed to kind of regenerate, you're supposed to rejuvenate, you're supposed to heal. And if you're not getting adequate sleep, then you're stuck in a downward spiral, right? You're never going to get any
Mm,
better. And it
mm.
really affects your mood in a number of ways. And now, as it pertains to women, sometimes we don't take into consideration this is the really important part with regards to it being Women's History Month that
Yeah.
there are differences, right? Physiological differences. There are differences between how pain presents in women compared to men and how pain is managed in women. We've talked about how, historically, Black women have been kind of marginalized or kind of disregarded in terms of pain management. And so there's this crazy idea that sisters can tolerate more pain and therefore don't need their pain managed, right? Or sometimes it's like, oh, they don't need pain management, they're drug seeking, those type of. So we do know some of the
Right.
systemic things, but there's also conditions that affect women differently than men, and there's reasons for that. And so as I was talking to her, I was like, you know what, this is something that I really need to, like address, especially given the month. And so I wanted to talk about some things that affect women, general pain. So we're talking about the hip pain, foot pain, right? So I actually had another patient come in, so I'll do something on foot pain itself. But like foot pain is a big thing, so we'll talk about that a little bit. And then the back
Especially
end,
when we wear all these
yeah,
terrible ass shoes that were
yeah.
made and designed by men who just want to see pumps and a bump. Like, and we
Yeah,
elevating, tipping uteruses and breaking ankles and rolling toes and messing up
hmm,
our feet just so we can get a little bump with a pump.
yeah,
And we need the CBD to help help with the
exactly.
pains.
And then unfortunately, and I hate to do this to my sisters. I hate
Here
to,
it comes.
it breaks my poor little heart. It breaks the doctor's
Every
heart
time.
to have to
Every
say
time.
this all the time, and you know it, right?
Hmm.
But when it comes to these kind of things, sisters are
Black women.
yeah,
Yeah. We
yeah. But we're here to help, right? So
That's right.
knowing is half the battle, right? So we do know, for example, Black women disproportionately experience higher rates of hip and joint pain compared to their Caucasian
Every time. Every
counterparts.
time.
Yeah, and there's a number of reasons of that, and part of that again is related to systemic conditions, right? So there's
Mm.
higher rates of obesity, right? And we know in the United States, obesity, unlike some underdeveloped countries, is as a result of socioeconomic status. So poor quality food, high processed foods, um, lower quality foods, those things tend to lead to obesity, which is what we get when we're not at the higher levels of income in the United States.
Mm.
There's some genetic factors of that. So CDC says about somewhere above 55% of Black women over 45 report some sort of arthritis or related pain.
Wow.
So we're talking about 56% compared to 45% of Caucasian women, right? So we're talking about 10% difference. And again, that could be genetic, that could be socioeconomic. And then we go into the weeds and it's talking about like caring for it, right? So this starts presenting, oh my God, I start having this little ache and pain. And then how long does it take for you to do something about it? Or do you let it progress to the point where it starts to, get to a point of like, hey, there's no return after this point. And so we do fall into those categories a lot, right? Getting care,
Wow.
delayed care, poor care, lack of access to care. And then these just like, it becomes an avalanche. So a condition that could be normally managed with good care becomes something really severe and debilitating because of the lack of care.
Damn it.
Get it. Gotta look
So
good. Oh.
that I hate racism. It just sucks in so many ways. It just sucks. So I also see from the article that you posted that women are 40% more likely to develop chronic back pain conditions than men. I think that's also related to the fact that we be carrying these heavy ass bags, and we got the baby on one hip, the stroller in the arm, and then a bag on the other. Even if you ain't got no baby, these heavy ass bags we be carrying. I'm trying to get my daughter to use a wheelie bag now because she got all her locker in her backpack and all her dance stuff that she uses for after school practice and rehearsal. Our backs are really struggling, and it's not just because we're the mules of the world as Black women carrying up the weight of the world on our shoulders. There are also some practical and structural issues that contribute to that as well. No.
That is absolutely 100% true. So it's not only the lifestyle, right? So your body has something called a kinetic chain. What that means is if you walk, you don't consciously say to you walk when you walk, I'm going to swing my arms or I'm going to put this foot in front and leave, right?
Mm.
It just happens. So
Yeah.
there's like a chain of commands that automatically happens. It says this happens, this, and boom, and you move. Well, when something is wrong, something is off, let's say your back or your hip, it affects everything above and below it, right? So if you've got a bad hip, it's going to affect your back in terms of your posture, how you support yourself, how you lift things, how you stand over life. That makes things work. If you've got a bad foot, your feet are hurting you. Well, it's going to change the way you walk, the way you stand, the way you bend over to do tasks, the way you work, and that's going to affect your hip or your back. And so
Wow.
these things along this kinetic chain, once something gets out of whack, out of alignment, right? So sometimes you have pain in the foot. It changes the way you walk, right? Because you're trying to compensate. And now you're like, oh man, my other leg is hurting me. Well, you're overcompensating. So these things happen as a result of, hey, one thing happens, it leads to the other. And then, as you mentioned, some of the things that we do in terms of like women, in terms of shoes, like heels, not
Jesus.
really a thing that is made for the human body to be walking around with, right? It literally changes your posture and how you have to stand up. It increases the curvature in your lower back. It causes you to have to stand in an abnormal position in order to maintain correct posture. So heels, for example, the
Yep.
shoes themselves, right? So the aesthetic is like, hey, let's get something narrower with these pointy toes and squeeze our foot in there. And this leads to things like bunions, which then changes your gait, right? It leads to things like swelling. So sometimes these shoes are too narrow, right? So it's like you get swelling. And you can get things like, common things like plantar fasciitis if people aren't familiar. And so that's just like pain on the bottom of your feet. The fascia is like the wrapping around. So if you ever like clean a chicken, that thin film around the muscles of it. So that's called fascia. We have that around everything, connective tissue. Sometimes that gets really, really irritated and tight. And anybody suffering from plantar fasciitis knows like you get out of bed in the morning, you cannot put your foot on the ground. It's like stepping on a bed of spikes,
Oh,
right?
God.
Some women develop flat feet. Pregnancy changes that. So the weight of carrying could cause your arches to fall. or
And pregnancy
footwear.
can change the size of your foot. Like
Yeah.
it's a whole lot. I remember when I learned being pregnant meant that all your bones technically separate so that you can expand for the baby.
Exactly.
When that baby is out, you they don't everything don't necessarily snap back into place the way it was
No.
before it expanded.
Yeah.
Don't
So
ask me how I know.
yeah. How do you know, man? How are you? Do you
Well,
have any
I'll talk about
personal?
that with the queen of woolly locks. I'm not having that conversation with you. Me and woolly locks can talk. You can't
Woolly,
be
you
there.
and woolly locks. So, so real talk. So you think about all these things in terms of genetics, you turn footwear, systemic oppression, and you look at these pain syndromes and say, well, women are suffering more from the pain. It's less managed, and there are more impediments. But not only that, the treatment options are different,
Right.
right? And so we've discussed in the past that women, for the most part, are the adopters of more holistic lifestyles. They
Mm,
are in a family, in a household. This is the demographic, the group of people who are like, I don't want to take all these pills, right? Not everybody does, but it is usually the woman who's in the household that's introducing more holistic, more naturopathic, more things. And it's harder to get those things when you go through traditional methods. And so it's kind of like I'm kind of stuck. I got to figure things out. And that's where mom, Tina Marie came in and was like, I'm gonna hook you up. All right. I'm gonna hook you up, get you a reliever and get you some CBD and like explain to you like, hey, this is what you can do. And when she was like, man, this thing puts me to sleep, I was like, this is like a commercial. I was like, this is like a commercial. I should have been recording this. I,
Oh, Miss Tina Marie, could you sing that one more time? Just, just sing it one more time. Sing
I
it one more
should
time
have
so I can
been
record it.
recording this. I'm gonna put you out there. So then we get to like the CBD, and it's, and we're trying to get through this, right? So we get to CBD and we get to topicals, right? So one of the things that happens in these conditions is a constant inflammation. So once you start the initial insult, your body's always trying to react to it and repair it. And that's how that inflammation kind of goes on because it never really fixes it. So it's always saying there's something wrong here that we got to go do something about. And in that process of trying to fix something they can't, it causes this continual damage, which is where the aches and pains, and over time you can get destruction of the joints, right? So when you take CBD internally, like the tinctures, the capsules, the gummies, all that stuff, it works through your body to decrease the levels of inflammation, right? It's an anti-inflammatory. Other kinds of anti-inflammatories are like corticosteroids, like cortisone. So some people have gotten shots, cortisone
Right.
shots in their hips, cortisone
Yep.
shots in their feet for plantar fasciitis, cortisone shots, and you can't take too many of those because they do break down the soft tissue. Other people take NSAIDs like aspirin and ibuprofen, and that causes ulcers. It can cause kidney problems. So you don't want to do that stuff. The CBD is a very potent anti-inflammatory with a much safer safety profile and side effect profile. But then you could also rub it on the area, which is the great. So you
Right.
don't really have to take it and eat it and drink it. The topical applications are great as well. And some people use like topical things like the icy hot or Voltaren creams and lotions, and they absorb and they don't go throughout the body. The
Right.
great thing about
Right.
the creams and topicals is that if you combine them both together, then you're getting at it from two different ways. It decreases the pain. So let's say you've been walking funny because your foot is hurt, you can walk normally again because walking and overcompensating to try to avoid the pain is making it worse, right?
Right.
And so if you
Right.
can take the edge off a little bit, then you can start resuming your normal gait, decreases the changes in your kinetic chain, and now you can like stand up straight again, walk properly, and do some of the other things like stretching and acupuncture and massage that'll help you get down to a level of pain that's manageable. And you can
So I
sleep.
know that's and so all of those things together are the challenge, right? So I do a lot of yoga, and one of the reasons I've been doing yoga for decades, and one of the reasons it's so is because I've had a lot of issues with my back, and so if I don't do yoga and I start to stiffen up, I'm like, oh, it's just about to pop. So somebody
Yeah.
go off, somebody go off. So I have to I maintain a very active physical reality in terms of health care because I don't need my back to go out because ain't nothing like your back going out. My son was 6 months old. And when I said them bones don't come back together the way they supposed
The
to, I
bones
dropped
is
a fork
going.
on the floor. Let me tell you, I dropped a fork on the floor. I bent down to pick up the fork. It was 48 hours before I could stand back up again because like shit did not come back the way it was supposed to come back. So like it really can be a and then my other challenge, and I'm just personalizing so that we can give some
Mhm.
additional examples. I'm usually a sleep on the stomach person. I find that's like the most comfortable way, but you can't sleep on your stomach because then you get wrinkles and it's also bad for your lower back. So then I'm a side sleeper for the most part now. But them hips on the side, you got a favorite side. Them hips be like, what the
Yeah,
hell are you
yeah,
doing? We were not meant to
exactly.
hold you sleeping all night long. You got this. So these issues are so real. And then when you add wearing high heels, somebody in the chat said their mama said you need to wear good shoes to take care of your feet because hard head makes so make for sore feet. I got
Yeah,
years of wearing heels that I ain't had no business wearing them, and then be dancing in them hard, like
yeah.
out, like to the point where I have taken out. There have been times, and I'm not like the worst of the worst, but I have come out of spaces when I was much younger. Y'all
Wait a
don't
minute.
judge
Don't
me.
be telling you're married. We don't want to know. Let me find
No,
out
no, no.
here.
Oh,
This
trust
is a
me. Me
safe
and Brian been
space.
together for decades. All my
This is a
fugaziness is with
safe
my
space.
husband.
Let me
We got
find out.
decades of fugazi where we know how to fugazi. Okay, let me just tell you
I've
that
been
people
outside.
understand
Let me.
this. But dog, I have taken my shoes off and walked barefoot in streets because my shoes hurt so bad. Like that's what I was gonna confess, y'all. It wasn't nothing beyond that. Me and
See,
we
this is
old
what I'm
school in
talking
this
about.
love game.
She
You ain't got
just
to worry about
told
none of them
us
stuff.
that she was barefoot in the streets.
I did
Look
that.
how
I
her
have been
life has
barefoot in the streets
changed.
before. I have been barefoot in the streets. It's disgusting. It's gross. Don't ever do it. But you don't have to do it when you wear sensible shoes.
Yeah.
And if you don't have sensible shoes, get you some Relieva.
Yeah. Get you a Roleva, rub that all over your feet, your hips, and your back, and take the edge
There you
off. But
go.
really, the management of these conditions specifically, I always tell people when they come to my office, if you knew before all this stuff, what kind of decisions would you make? And so,
Right.
just knowing that, hey, the
Yeah.
things that I'm doing, the choices that I'm making are contributing to this. I can't sleep and I'm feeling terrible during the day because of pain. Well, what are you going to do at night before you go to sleep to manage your pain so you can
Mm,
sleep, right? Or what are you doing during the day to make sure that you don't exacerbate the conditions? Are you aware of that? So, you know,
right.
we wrote an article. We always write a wonderful article that
Yep.
accompanies the show. So they can go to drdamas.com, click on knowledge, and you can see all the other articles that we've written. And as you always mention, it's well researched and thoroughly immersed in knowledge. You
Yes.
get lots of pearls in there. And you can also shop. You can buy your reliever there. And I love it when y'all call the office. You know that. I also love it when you call me Big Papa, but I love it when you're.
It
So,
was Biggie weekend last weekend. Like,
yeah.
that was good.
You can hit us up at
But if
833.
you forgot to
Oh,
tell them
oh,
though,
my
if they're
bad,
gonna
my bad, my
call
bad.
or if they're
I'm
gonna
being too
order, they
pushy.
got to use the code Lurie so that they can get a discount
Yeah, I'm
on their
being
order.
disrespectful.
LURIE. That's right. Put some respect on the name.